Hello po sa ating mga kaguruan at mga magulang. Alam ko po, napaka-busy po natin sa mga panahong ito. Dahil kasalukuyan po, nag-uumpisa na pong mag-print ng mga modules ng ating mga teachers. And I know, busy din ng mga parents sa paghahanda po at pagtatanong kung ano po ang mangyayari sa panuruang taong 2020-2021. So nandito po ako ngayon para i-share sa inyo ang mga bagong information na nakalap ko from one of our conferences about assessment. Alam po kasi natin na ang learning cannot go without assessment o hindi ito pwedeng uh, mag-stand alone kung walang assessment. So, pag-usapan natin, paano po ba ginigrade ang ating mga estudyante? Paano ba ginagawa ng teacher ang pagsusolve ng grades, lalong-lalo na sa makabagong panahon ngayon, sa makabagong modality ng pag-aaral kung saan ang ating mga estudyante ay nag-aaral sa kanilang mga bahay-bahay. Bilang isang kawani ng gobyerno sa larangan ng edukasyon, hindi po natin maiiwasang mag-react or magbigay ng kasagutan kapag nakakakita po ng ganitong mga posts sa social media. Kung babasahin ko po ang posts, ganito po siya. Keng bale pa mag-aral ken you normal? Ba, ako na rin mamye grades, kaya nga anak ko. Pakatasan na grades. At tapos napakaraming smiley na talagang sobrang tumatawa. Kung ito-translate ko ito sa Tagalog, ang sabi po ay, sa bahay na pag-aaral sa new normal, aba, ako na lang din magbibigay ng grade sa anak ko. Pataasan na lang. Okay? Sa ganitong mga pagkakataon po, hindi talaga natin maiiwasan ang mga ganitong mga comments ng ating mga magulang, lalo't lalo na hindi na-explain ng mabuti sa kanila kung paano ang learning modality. Sabi nga po natin, sa pagkatuto ng mga bata, hindi nawawala ang assessment kasi hindi po natin malalaman kung natututo ang ating mga estudyante kung hindi sila nabibigyan ng assessment o pagtataya. At ito po ang aking layunin para sa video sharing na ito, upang maliwanagan ang ating mga kaguruan, pati na rin ang ating mga magulang kung paano ang grading system sa distance learning na pamamaraan ng pag-aaral. Hindi ko po siya kaagad na ibigay sa inyo sapagkat kinailangan ko pong pag-aralang mabuti kung ano ang ibibigay kong information. At base po sa aking mga nakalap na impormasyon, although ito po ay proposed grading system pa lamang po, upang mabigyan po ang ating mga kaguruan ng idea at ang ating mga magulang, ibinibigay ko po or ibinabahagi ko na po sa inyo ang mga impormasyon na ito. So, paano nga po ba natin bibigyan ng grades ang ating mga estudyante kung sa tahanan po sila nag-aaral or kung susundin po natin ang mga new normal learning modalities sa panahon ngayon ng pandemya? Sa pagbibigay po ng assessment sa ating mga estudyante, nakapagbigay po ako ng unang video lesson sa inyo on how to assess our learners in the new normal. Nabanggit ko na rin po doon na may dalawang pamamaraan ng assessment na ginagawa ang ating mga kaguruan. Sa formative assessment po, this is the process within the teaching and learning instruction that aims to improve instructional practices and tracks learners' progress. So, ibig sabihin po nito, the assessment is ongoing before the teaching and learning instruction, during the teaching learning instruction, and after the teaching learning instruction. Sabi ko nga po, activities within the instruction. Lahat ng activities that involves teachers and learners within the teaching and learning engagement, this is what we call formative assessment. Tracking of learners' progress. And of course, checking the effectiveness and efficiency of the teaching strategies of our teachers. So, yun po yung formative assessment, which is different from summative assessment. Ano po ba ang summative assessment? Summative assessment is an event that occurs at the end of a learning period to measure the extent to which the learners have mastered the essential learning competencies, wherein the results of which are used as basis for computing grades. So yung una pong video lesson po na naibigay ko sa inyo is, ang focus po niya is about formative assessment. How do we provide formative assessment to our learners, especially if we take into consideration the cognitive domains, okay po, or dimensions in the teaching and learning process. Ngayon po, ang focus natin ay ang ating summative assessment. So pag pinag-uusapan po natin ang grades, ang summative assessment, sa new normal, ang tanong po niya ng mga teachers at mga parents, paano ba gagawin? Ano bang methodology ang pagbibigay ng summative assessment sa ating mga estudyante or yung learners assessment delivery method. So, pag-usapan po natin kasi meron tayong iba't ibang learning modalities. Meron tayong blended learning modalities, meron tayong distance learning, meron tayong homeschooling. So, dahil si public schools po ay gearing towards distance learning, pag-usapan natin paano ang teaching and learning engagement, assessment, and how it is going to be delivered to our learners. So, pagdating po ng online distance learning, ito po yung nasa kaliwa, sabi dito, in order for the assessment to process, the learners must submit their outputs online. Learners come to school to take the quarterly exams when already allowed. Pag hindi naman po pwede, okay lang yan kasi sabi naman po ni Undersecretary, kung ayaw payagan ng bata, kung pwede na ang face-to-face at ayaw pa rin ng payagan ng bata or ayaw pa rin ng bata for health reasons or precautionary measure reasons, pwede pa rin siyang mag-test online. So ano po yung mga materials na at most present in online distance learning modality? We should have our e-modules, our e-resources, and our educational platforms or website. Kung modular distance learning naman po, learners must come to school to take the quarterly exams. Again po, kung pwede na. Pag hindi pa rin po pwede, so teacher must provide an intervention on how to communicate and provide the quarterly exam to our learners. Parents are to submit completed works and receive feedbacks from teachers. Modules and other learning resources are of course brought home. Pagdating naman po ng tinatawag nating blended learning modality, meron tayong combination of face-to-face plus modular or radio-based instruction or TV-based instruction. Learners go to school to submit their outputs or the parents go to school to submit their outputs and receive feedbacks from the teacher. Learners take quarterly assessment in school. Modules and other learning resources are of course brought home. Pagdating naman po ng blended learning modality na ang features ay modular distance learning, face-to-face plus online, learners go to school at most twice a week just to take written work, performance tasks, and quarterly assessment. The materials that must be present in this modality are e-modules, e-resources, and of course, the educational platform. So, yun yung modality. Kailangan pala si estudyante pupunta sa school. Pero kung hindi po pwede at hindi pinapayagan, lalong-lalo na kung high risk pa po yung community, magdi-devise po ng paraan si teacher kung paano sila magkakaroon ng quarterly exam na hindi kinakailangan ang face-to-face. Okay? Para sa ating mga magulang, let me share with you what is going on with our schools right now. Napaka-busy po ng mga supervisors, napaka-busy po ng ating mga principals at teachers sa pagpaplano, pagpiprint ng mga resources, pagkalap po ng budget para sa atin pong mga modules na gagamitin ng ating mga estudyante. Hindi lang yon. Habang ginagawa po nila yan, nag-iisip na po sila kung paano ang pinakamabisang proseso upang maibigay ang nararapat na pamamaraan ng implementation ng learning delivery modalities na ito. Kaakibat po niyan, ang ating mga teachers ay gumagawa na po ng kanilang mga class programs kung saan they take into consideration po, most especially, kung paano makikater ang iba't ibang konteksto ng modality ng ating mga estudyante. Imagine in 45 students po. Kung 45 po yung students at kalahati noon ay modular distance learning, kalahati ay distance learning, paano nila masasakop ang mga oras, ang mga pamamaraan na lahat ng yan ay hindi mapapawalang bahala, no, o maibibigay ang karampatan para sa ating lahat ng mga estudyante. So kasama din po yan, iniisip na po nila kung ito ang pamamaraan ng aking pagtuturo, no, modular distance learning, online distance learning, paano ko naman maibibigay ang assessment sa aking mga estudyante? At kung nabigay ko na ang assessment sa ating mga estudyante, how will I measure it? How will I evaluate it? So yun ang mga piniprepare po ng ating mga teachers. That's why DepEd also gave us guidelines, no? But this is just the proposed guidelines, no? Meron pong dalawang pamamaraan ng pagre-rate sa ating mga estudyante sa panahon ngayon. Meron tayong tinatawag na qualitative assessment at quantitative assessment. So pag tinatawag po natin quantitative assessment, it involves numbers, so may rating, may grades. Paano ngayon na-modify ang pagbibigay ng grades para sa ating mga estudyante sa panahon ng pandemya? So this is the proposed modified percentage of components for K to 10 based on the learning delivery modality. So ano po ang ibig sabihin yan? Sa bawat learning delivery modality, mayroon pong kaakibat na components, percentage of components para sa ating mga assessment. Kasi po hindi pwede, there's no such thing as one size fits all. DepEd always think about the welfare of our learners. So, dapat hindi stressful. Dapat hindi ang ating mga estudyante hindi nag-iisip ng mga hesitations or pag-aalinlangan na baka hindi nila alam kung paano ang pagtitest or paano sila mag-grade, no, sa panahon ngayon. Pero nakaangkla pa rin ito dun sa ating DepEd Order number 8 series of 2015 kung saan ang mga components na mini-measure ay ang written tests, ang performance tasks, and quarterly assessment. So for grades 1 to 10, pag pinag-uusapan natin yung written test, pinag-uusapan po natin ito yung mga long tests, no? Unit test na ibinibigay po sa ating mga estudyante, no? For a certain course of a quarter. Nagkakaroon po sila ng mga written tests, evaluation tests, no? Weekly tests para po ma-measure kung yung bang competencies set for that week or for that unit was acquired, no, by our learners. Pag pinag-uusapan naman po natin yung performance task, we are talking about practical applications, no, skill presentations, no, yung mga oral presentation, research activities, lalong-lalo na ano po, kasi po yung mga written outputs, they are also considered as performance task. And then pag sinasabi naman natin quarterly assessment, these are objective tests and performance-based tests in every quarter para ma-measure po, or both para ma-measure po kung naintindihan po ba ng ating mga estudyante yung quarterly learning competencies na kailangan nilang maintindihan. Okay po? So, dahil sinabi ko po kanina na based po sa learning delivery modality, ang percentage ng bawat components, umpisahan po natin sa online distance learning. Okay? Public schools will be accommodating students also through online distance learning. So, paano i-grade ang bawat subject kung ang modality ay online distance learning? So, umpisahan natin sa language subjects, English and Filipino. Paano ba yung distribution, no, ng percentage kung written test, performance test, at quarterly assessment? So, for language subjects, 35% for the written test, 45% for the performance task, and 20% for the quarterly assessment. Samantalang po sa AP, Araling Panlipunan, at ESP o Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao, ang written test po ay 30%, ang performance task ay 50%, no? Malaki po kasi kailangan napapakita nila ang kasanayan, no, na natutunan sa ilalim ng Araling Panlipunan at ESP subject. And then quarterly assessment is 20%. Doon naman po sa subject na science and math, pag written test po ay 30%, pag performance task ay 40%, at pag quarterly assessment, 30%. Okay po, science and math, 30, 40, 30, 100%. Samantalang po sa MAPE, EPP, and TLE, ang written test po ay 20%, ang performance task ay 60% dahil po MAPE, EPP, and TLE ay kailangan performance-based po yan. And then quarterly assessment is 20%. Yan po yung distribution ng percentage ng mga components sa online distance learning. Tignan naman po natin kung ano ang sa modular distance learning. Sa modular distance learning, sa language po, we have written test 35%, performance tasks 45%, and quarterly assessment 20%. Okay? Samantalang po sa science and math, written test is 30%, performance task is 30%, and quarterly assessment is 40%. But dito, mas mataas ang quarterly assessment sa science and math kesa sa performance task. Because accordingly, okay, according to research and according to DepEd, verifiable po ang understanding ng ating mga bata once they are able to answer in their quarterly assessment test. So mas mataas po ang kanyang percentage. While sa modular distance learning under MAPE and EPP and TLE, the written test is 20%, performance task is 60%, and quarterly assessment is 20%. So parehas po siya, online distance learning and modular distance learning. How about naman po kung ang learning modality ng ating eskwelahan ay tinatawag nating blended learning delivery modality? Pag blended learning delivery modality, halo-halo po yan. Halimbawa ito, meron siyang combination of face-to-face plus modular, plus radio-based instruction, plus TV-based instruction. So kung ganito po ang learning modality na binibigay po natin sa ating mga estudyante, paano natin sila i-grade based on these components? So, sa language subjects, 35% po ang written test, 45% ang performance task, and 20% ang quarterly assessment. Samantalang sa Araling Panlipunan at Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao, written test is 30%, performance task is 50%, and quarterly assessment is 20%. When it comes to science and math, written test is 40%, performance task is 30%, and quarterly assessment naman is 30%. Sa MAPE, EPP at TLE, okay, umpisahan natin sa MAPE, written test is 20%, performance task is 60%, and quarterly assessment is 20%. Sa EPP and TLE, written test is 40%, performance task is 40%, and quarterly assessment po is 20%. Again po, sa MAPE, malaki pong percentage ang nasa performance. And then, distributed naman po sa EPP and TLE na 40% ang written test at performance test at 20% sa quarterly assessment. Okay? How about kung ang blended learning modality mo ay may face-to-face plus online, okay? Ito po ay example lamang na blended learning modality pero hindi po tayo nakakasiguro kung meron tayong mga schools na pwede nang mag face-to-face. Pero in the case na pwede na po ang face-to-face, pwede naman po tayong magkaroon ng blended learning modality. So in face-to-face plus online blended learning modality, sa language subjects, ang written test po ay 30%, ang performance task ay 50%, at ang quarterly assessment ay 20%. Okay? When it comes to science and math, written test is 40%, performance task is 30%, and quarterly assessment is 30%. And then, sa MAPE, written test is 20%, performance task is 60%, quarterly assessment is 20%. In EPP and TLE, written test po is 10%, performance task is 80%, and quarterly assessment is 10%. Napakalaki po ng performance na nire-require sa EPP TLE because it's 80%. So yan po, no? Kung mapapansin nyo, depende sa learning delivery modality ang percentage ng pagbibigay po ng grades ng bawat subject para sa ating mga estudyante. This is for grades 1 to 10. Kung pupunta naman po tayo sa senior high school, silipin natin kung paano yung distribution ng percentage ng mga components. Doon sa ating online distance learning, meron tayong core subjects. Sa core subjects, sa online distance learning, ang written test po ay 20%, ang performance task ay 50%, and ang quarterly assessment ay 30%. Samantalang sa kanyang academic subjects, meron tayong written test na 20%, performance task na 45%, at quarterly assessment na 35%. Pagdating sa kanilang research activities, immersion, and business enterprise, sa written test is 35%, sa performance task is 40%, and sa quarterly assessment ay 25%. Yan ay under sa online distance learning. Paano naman ang mga senior high school na nabibilang sa modular distance learning? Ang core subject po nila for written test is 35%, ang performance task ay 30%, and quarterly assessment ay 30%. Pagdating sa academic subjects, written test is 30%, performance task is 35%, and quarterly assessment is 35%. While in the research, work, immersion, and business enterprise, written test is 35%, performance task is 40%, and quarterly assessment is 25%. On the blended learning modality po, where there is a combination po of face-to-face plus modular plus radio-based instruction plus TV-based instruction, for our core subject sa senior high school, the written test is 25%, the performance test is 40%, and the quarterly assessment is 35%. For the academic subjects, the written test is 25%, the performance task is 40%, and the quarterly assessment is 35%. Samantalang po sa research work, immersion, and business enterprise, ang written test po ay 35%, performance task is 40%, and quarterly assessment is 25%. Another combination on blended learning modality is face-to-face plus online delivery of instruction. So senior high school core subjects, written test is 35%. Performance task is 40%. Quarterly assessment is 25%. Samantalang sa academic subjects, written test is 25%. Performance task is 40%, and quarterly assessment is 35%. In research work, immersion, and business enterprise, written test is 35%, performance task is 40%, and quarterly assessment is 25%. You might be asking questions like, bakit naman iba-iba ang percentage ng bawat components kung iba-iba ang learning delivery modality? Well, the reason behind po is these were carefully planned and these were carefully studied kung saan mas best makaka-perform ang ating mga estudyante base sa konteksto ng learning delivery modality na angkop para sa kanila. So kung angkop yung learning delivery modality na yon, dapat angkop din ang binibigay nating assessment. Kung angkop ang assessment, dapat po ang distribution ng grading system ay angkop din sa kung saan sila mas makakapag-perform ng mabuti. Sabi nga, dapat less stress ang system na kinakaharap ng ating mga estudyante with the current pandemic that we are experiencing right now. Huwag naman na mahirap na ang sitwasyon ng ating bansa, mahirap pa ang pamamaraan ng pagkatuto ng ating mga bata. So, yun po ang dahilan kung bakit iba-iba. So, sasabihin ni teacher, ma'am, kung 5 sa estudyante ko ay modular learning, 5 ay online distance learning, 5 po sa kanila ay face-to-face plus online, di iba-iba po yung pamamaraan ng pag-grade ko sa kanila. Yes po. Kasi nga po, yun po ang hinihingi ng pagkakataon, yun po ang hinihingi at binibigay na pamamaraan ng ating departamento. So, paano natin ma-exemplify po ang pagsusolve ng grades? Ipapakita po natin ang pamamaraan na sample computation, halimbawa po sa language subject, English, at halimbawa po ang ipapakita nating example ay under online distance learning, kung saan ang written work ay 35%. Okay po? So, pag-usapan natin. So, halimbawa po ang si Jane na estudyante, ang kanyang grade ay ganito. Kung meron siyang 7 na unit test or evaluation or long test, kung saan sa bawat test, yung unang test ay ang highest percentage score ay 20, nakakuha siya ng 18. Sa pangalawa ay 25, nakakuha po siya ng 22. Sa pangatlo ay 20, nakakuha siya ng perfect score. Sa pang-apat ay 20, nakakuha siya ng 17 na score. Sa pang-5, 25 ang highest score, nakakuha siya ng 23, matalino si Jane. Sa pang-6 may 30, nakakuha siya ng 26. And sa pang-7 unit test po niya, nakakuha siya ng 20. 20 yung highest score at nakakuha siya ng 19. So isang quarter to. So 7 yung sa evaluation niya, yung long test niya. So pag pinagsama-sama natin po yan, ang possible score is 100. Okay, percentage score. So pag in-add po natin yung mga scores ni Jane, okay, 18 plus 22 plus 20 plus 17 plus 23 plus 26 plus 19, we get 145. Ito po yun, yung total ng score niya. So yung total ng score niya, i-divide natin sa highest possible score na 160 times 100, and then we get 90.625. Okay, so ito po niyan yung kanyang percentage score. So, para makuha natin yung weighted score for written work ni Jane, yung kanyang percentage score na 90.625, imumultiply po natin sa written work percentage na 35%, and we get 31.72. So for this quarter, ang written work ni Jane ay may score na 31.72. Ito yung kanyang weighted score. Pag pinag-uusapan naman natin ang performance ni Jane sa performance-based task, which ang weighted score ay 45%. Kung nakakuha siya ng 12, 13, 19, 15, 16, and 25, i-add po natin lahat yan. At makukuha po natin dun sa score niya is 100. Again, yung 100 score niya, i-divide natin sa highest possible score na 120, and times 100, we get 83.33. Okay? And then, to get the weighted score, we multiply 83.33, which is the percentage score, to the percentage of performance task, which is 45%. And so we get the performance task weighted score of Jane is 37.50. Pagdating sa kanyang quarterly assessment na 20%, okay, ang percentage ng component, wherein sa kanyang summative test, sa first quarter, nakakuha siya ng 40 out of 50. Okay? So 40 divided by 50 times 100 is 80. 80 divided by 80 times 20% pala. 80 times 20%, okay, which is the weighted score, is 16. So, ito po yung mga weighted score niya. Sa written work, 31.72. Sa performance task, 37.50. Sa quarterly assessment, 16. So, what we're going to do is we're going to add all of that. So, we get 31.72 plus 37.50 plus 16, we get 85.22. Now, this 85.22 now is Jane's initial grade. Okay? Ito po yung grade niya. Pero kung i-render po ito sa report card, we need to transmute this, di ba, teachers? Kailangan po natin i-transmute itong 85.22 sa grade na dapat ilagay sa report card. And when you're going to check the transmutation table, yung 85.22 ay nasa score na or nasa rating na 90. Okay, this is now Jane's first quarter grade. Ayan po kung paano natin isusolve ang scores ng ating estudyante sa online distance learning. Again po, depende doon sa subject. So, if you have questions about this, you can put it in the comment box below. And if you want to request for more information, again, you just comment on the comment box below. Okay po? And then, just remember, in student learning, both formative and summative assessment must be accompanied with timely, constructive, and meaningful feedbacks. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you learned a lot. Maraming salamat. Okay, that is how we compute for the quantitative grades of our learners. Soon to come po is how we compute for the qualitative rating for our students. And I hope you stay with me so that I can provide you more information about education. Please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, teachers, and even parents. And of course, pa-subscribe naman. Maraming salamat. And I wish you all the best. God bless and keep safe.